Stories, Philippines, podcast.
A darkness permeates this episode. This story delves into experiences and shadows some may find profoundly disturbing. Listener discretion is not merely advised, it is imperative. The asphalt ribbon of the bypass road, slick with the heat of a forgotten afternoon and now chilling under the vast, indifferent blanket of a tropical night, holds its secrets close. It is a space designed for speed, for the rush from one place to another, but at midnight, it becomes a canvas for deeper, slower fears. Imagine the sheer, inky blackness beyond the sweep of the headlights, a darkness so absolute it feels like a presence. It was April, a time of late-night concerts and the buzzing aftermath of summer heat. The car was humming, a rolling capsule of modern life hurtling through an older, more silent world. Inside, the driver, whose name we will call Noel, kept his eyes fixed, while his companion, let us call her Veronica, simply watched the nothingness outside her window. The world felt reduced to the tunnel of light cast by their vehicle, a temporary defiance against the overwhelming night. Then came the bridge. These are the geographical scars of progress, necessary breaks in the Earth's surface where water flows or where older pathways used to lie. Just before the small concrete span, Noel's foot suddenly pressed the accelerator. The car surged, a quick, almost panicked burst of speed, lasting only until they had cleared the structure and the road stretched out once more. The sudden acceleration was an intrusion on the smooth flow of the night, a tiny disruption that Veronica barely registered at the time, attributing it to a simple desire to get home. But a few miles later, when Noel finally eased the speed and the quiet returned, the question came. A simple, sharp whisper that cuts through the mundane. "Did you see that?" "See what?" Veronica asked, still tethered to the quiet reverie of the outside darkness. "The bridge. There was someone standing right at the edge of the approach just before the signpost." Veronica turned, trying to rewind her memory, but there was only the blur of the past few minutes. "Where? I was looking out this whole time. Right on your side, in the dark. Maong jeans, no slippers, I could not see the head. It was hidden by the sign." She shrugged it off, reaching for a common sense explanation. "A hitchhiker, maybe. It is late, Paul. Just a person needing a ride." Bill shook his head, a decisive, cold movement. "No. The moment we passed the signpost, I looked in the rear view. Just a quick glance, gone, just like that. That is why I sped up. That is the moment when the ordinary slides into the unnerving. That small gap in time, the second between when the figure should have been visible to the driver and the confirmation that it was not, is the space where the haunting takes root. It is a familiar dread across all cultures, the sudden, unprovoked disappearance of a figure spotted by the roadside." Veronica, trying to keep the mood light, offered a classic nervous jest. "Well, check the back seat, Kuya. Maybe it is riding with us now. No head, you said? Look in the mirror." A nervous beat of silence, Noel glanced up at the small rectangular glass that reflects the interior, then back to the road. His eyes now wide and cold. He said nothing more, a silence far heavier than the nervous laughter. The drive ended, the goodbyes were made, but the story did not end when Veronica stepped out. Later, a text message arrived, short and chilling. It was in the back seat, no head, it disappeared when I made the last turn into our street. I am Paul, and you are listening to Stories Philippines podcast. This deep dive into the nation's highway hauntings, the ghosts that linger where the speed of modern life intersects with the stillness of the old world, is sponsored by the belief that every kilometer of road in this archipelago holds more than just asphalt and dust. We explore the superstitions that cling to nighttime travel, the long-haul buses that are mobile vessels of fear, and the provincial roads from the winding paths of Cavite to the deep shadows near Baguio that have become legends of spectral sightings. To understand these road ghosts, the hitchhikers, the headless figures, and the unexplained vehicles, one must first look at the foundation of fear. This is not just a Filipino phenomenon. The vanishing hitchhiker is a global urban legend, a perennial narrative that pops up in the deserts of the American Southwest, on the autobahns of Germany, and along the long, empty stretches of the Australian outback. It is the story of a traveler, often a woman in white, or a soldier, or a simple person from a bygone era who appears on the edge of the road, asks for a ride, and then vanishes from the moving vehicle. In the Philippines, however, this story gains a distinctive, visceral texture deeply rooted in the history of the roads themselves. Many major provincial roads, especially those near old Spanish towns and the newer bypasses that cut through ancestral lands, were built on ground that has seen enormous suffering. The nation has endured multiple invasions, the destruction of the Second World War, and centuries of often brutal colonial rule. And the land itself holds the memory of abrupt, violent ends. Consider the history of the highway. Before the asphalt and the concrete, there were trails. And before the trails, there were footpaths connecting small settlements. The Spanish colonial period, lasting over 300 years, saw the creation of the Caminos Reales, or royal roads. These were not always built with ease in mind. They were often laid out to connect power centers, military outposts, and ports requiring forced labor. The Polo Iseryo, where Filipino men were compelled to work for the crown. It is not an exaggeration to say that many of the very foundations of today's thoroughfares were laid with the sweat, tears, and even the lives of those who perished from exhaustion, disease, or the severity of the task. A road built upon trauma is, in the cultural mind, a road prone to haunting. The road ghost is a particular kind of spirit, often perceived as being tethered to its last mortal journey or its abrupt end. In the case of the headless figure seen by Noel, the image is profoundly unsettling and immediately links to a history of violence. Decapitation was a common method of execution and a form of intimidation used by various groups throughout the nation's history, from tribal conflicts to colonial military justice and wartime brutality. A spirit without a head is not merely a ghost. It is a profound manifestation of unfinished business, a soul that cannot find peace because its physical integrity was violated in the most final, shocking way. Let us look at another example. A story was shared by a former nursing student, a young woman we will call Maricel, which occurred around the year 2000. Maricel drove her classmates home late at night after long shifts at the hospital. On one particular night, after dropping off the last of her friends, she drove alone toward her apartment. Hospitals, with their close proximity to life and death, are notorious centers for unexplained phenomena. And this narrative begins with the kind of fatigue and high-stress environment that can make the line between reality and hallucination thin and fragile. Driving, she instinctively checked her rear view mirror, a common act of caution on a dark road. What she saw was a figure in the back seat, a person. Her heart sank, not in fear at first, but in confusion. She knew with absolute certainty that she had dropped off every single classmate. She was supposed to be alone. The realization dawned with a cold shock. This was no living passenger. It was a phantom. The terror, she recounted, was a dizzying internal coldness. But a moment later, when she dared to look again, the figure was gone. This story of the unexplained passenger is a recurring motif, a narrative that speaks to the modern anxiety of surveillance and the fear of the unseen companion. We are most vulnerable when we believe we are alone. A car is a private sealed space. For something to penetrate that barrier, to occupy the space behind us unseen until reflected in a mirror, is a profound violation. The superstitions surrounding nighttime travel on long-haul buses are even richer. These buses, often traversing the length of the country, are mobile communities on the edge of sleep and awareness. Drivers facing long hours are often deeply superstitious, adhering to rituals that are centuries old. One rule is universal. Never look directly at a hitchhiker at night, and never ever stop for one outside a populated area. The fear is not just of a physical threat, but of a metaphysical one. Many people believe that these roadside spirits are witch, but representing a practitioner of harmful magic, or simply lost souls seeking to trick a driver into a fatal accident, thus adding a new spirit to the road's dark senses. The folklore is complex. In one popular regional tale, a beautiful woman appears on the road, weeping. When a man stops to help, she reveals herself to be an aswang, who then attempts to feed upon him. The roads, therefore, are not just physical paths, but testing grounds where compassion and caution meet the malevolent supernatural. The belief is that the further you get from the light of the city, the closer you get to the realm where these creatures hold sway. In the case of the bus drivers, the rituals are practical and profound. They hang blessed rosaries or anting amulets from their mirrors. They say specific prayers before starting the engine. They will often leave one seat, usually the one beside the driver or the one in the very back, officially unoccupied, a silent offering to the spirits of the road, a form of spiritual insurance. To sit in the ghost seat is to invite a terrifying close encounter. This fear is often amplified by the geography itself. Take, for instance, the roads leading up to Baguio in the northern mountains. These winding, high-altitude roads, such as the famous Kenan Road, are cut into dramatic, landslide-prone terrain. The constant danger from nature is compounded by a deep history. Baguio, a former American colonial hill station, is famously a place of dark energy due to the number of deaths during its construction, the battles fought there during the Second World War, and the area's association with indigenous legends of powerful nature spirits. The ghost stories here are tied to the steep drops and the sudden mists. Accidents on these roads are often attributed not to human error or poor maintenance, but to a spirit that suddenly appeared in the beam of the headlights, causing the driver to swerve. The mountain in this cultural view is not a passive landscape. It is an active entity, and the roads are merely scars upon its surface. The ghosts are its security system. Similarly, the highways in Cavite, near Manila, have their own reputation. Cavite, a region with a fierce revolutionary history, is crisscrossed with roads that run through fields and farmlands that were once battlegrounds. The spectral soldiers of the revolution are often reported still marching, still fighting, or simply waiting for a ride that will take them home to a peace they never found. The modernity of the Dang Hari Bypass, a smooth, fast road built in recent times, is an invitation for spectral activity, precisely because it cuts through this old, blood-soaked land, disturbing the rest of the unquiet dead. The psychological dimension of these stories is compelling. The human mind, under conditions of extreme fatigue, which is common for long-haul drivers and late-night travelers, is highly susceptible to hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations, the transitional states between wakefulness and sleep. The flickering light of the road, the rhythmic hum of the engine, and the blackness outside create a kind of sensory deprivation that can lead to misinterpretation of shadows or a momentary construction of a figure that is not truly there. When two people experience the same thing, as in Noel and Veronica's story, it is more often a result of shared cultural anticipation, or what is known as a folie à deux, a shared delusion, rather than an independent confirmation of the supernatural. The culture has provided the script for the fear, and the road conditions provide the stage. However, the power of these stories is not diminished by a purely scientific explanation. The belief in these entities serves a profound cultural function. In a country where roads can be dangerous and long drives tiring, these ghost stories are cautionary tales. They are a cultural mechanism for enforcing alertness, sobriety, and reverence for the land. They are the invisible traffic police, ensuring that drivers do not take the long, dark, and often perilous journey lightly. The theological viewpoint, particularly within the dominant Catholic framework, views these spirits as souls in purgatory, or sometimes as demonic entities. The headless priest, another common road ghost, is a figure of profound sorrow and warning. He is a clergyman who died tragically, or perhaps sinfully, forced to wander the roads he may have once traveled on his mission. His headless state represents his inability to speak, to confess, or to receive absolution. He is a visible sign of spiritual decay and the ultimate terrifying consequence of unrepentance. For the devout, the response is simple: prayer. The Hail Mary, the Our Father, and the recitation of the Rosary are the traditional countermeasures against a sudden, chilling encounter. The car becomes a traveling shrine, and faith a shield against the darkness of the highway. The simple act of crossing oneself when passing a roadside memorial or an isolated cemetery is a declaration of belief and a plea for safe passage. Let us return to the nature of the hitchhiker, the figure who desires to ride but is not meant to reach a destination. The figure seen by Noel and Veronica in Montpants without slippers is a perfect specter of the common person caught in a state of eternal transit. Maong jeans are a symbol of the ordinary, the working life. The lack of sinelas or slippers suggests a person caught abruptly, having left the comfort of home without preparing for a long journey. The vanishing act upon reaching the bridge, a point of geographical transition, suggests that the spirit is not allowed to pass beyond a certain boundary. The bridge, which connects two pieces of land, may be its only tether to the mortal world. The stories keep flowing to us year after year, different roads, different drivers, the same unsettling core. If you have been on a late night journey, if you have felt that prickle of cold air inside a sealed car, if you have seen something that logic immediately rejected, but your gut instinct absolutely believed, then we want to hear from you. Submit your stories to our email, storiesphpodcast@gmail.com. We read every one. These highway hauntings serve as a final eerie look at a nation in transition. The modern infrastructure, the expressways, the massive buses, the high-speed cars, is overlaid on a deep-rooted, older world of faith, folklore, and collective memory. The road ghosts are a manifestation of the collective trauma carried through the centuries. They are the shadows of the nation's dark history, appearing when we are most distracted by the speed and light of the 21st century. They are the ancient past, reminding the hurried present that the earth beneath the tires is not just ground, but memory. The next time you are driving late and the lights of the city have shrunk to a faint glow in your rearview mirror, pause for a moment. Feel the profound stillness of the night. Listen not only to the sound of your engine, but to the silence beyond the glass. You might find show notes and support options in the description for this episode, detailing our sources and the various historical accounts that frame these modern fears. Remember that we also have exclusive content available for our most dedicated listeners. Access exclusive content on Patreon and help us continue to bring these stories to light. Also, you can follow us on social media for daily folklore facts that deepen your understanding of the world around you. The stories are not just about the dead, but about the living. They are about the fear that runs through the bloodstream of a people, a fear that keeps them cautious, keeps them humble, and keeps them tied to the spiritual landscape of their home. Every road trip in the Philippines is not just a physical journey, but a spiritual one, where the travelers share the lane with the spectral traffic of the past. The ghost in the back seat is the memory you forgot you brought along. Do the ghosts ride the highways because they are trying to reach a destination, or are they simply a permanent, tragic fixture of the journey itself? The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there, but sometimes they still need a ride home. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this deep dive into the nation's haunting highways. Do not forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share this podcast. Support the podcast financially in ways you can find in the show notes. Good night.